There we go. So I think you had some ideas on where to start today.
Yeah, so we were going to go through, I went through a lot of it, not every single one down to the end. And you'll see I went to the very last main claim under the parent claim.
Okay.
Should I share my screen so we're looking at the same thing in terms of where I'm at, but then I'll just talk you through my feedback?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Okay, let me see if I can go in there. Okay, so this is, yeah, just that way we're following along at the same point.
Yeah.
Okay, and going to my analysis. So this is the analysis page. I added the analysis to the table of contents page, so you'll always know where all my documents are that I've shared with you, and they'll just be kind of in order there. So the very first thing, should you take the COVID vaccine? All right, you know me, I'm a stickler for words. And we don't take a vaccine, we get a vaccine. And if you look everywhere, I search for, should you take the COVID vaccine just on Google? And every source says, get the vaccine, get the vaccine. I don't really see take. I mean, maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places.
It's interesting. I don't know where I got that from. But yeah, but
English is not the first language.
Well,
because take and get are interchangeable.
Well, I think I came up with it.
Oh, so, did you?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, but English is your first language.
I don't know. Oh, yeah. It's my only language.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if, I mean, I'm from Texas, so we say fixin' to as well. So I'm wondering if it's a nuance to, and my mom's from Oklahoma, so I'm really messed up.
Take a vaccine, get a vaccine.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Get feels like I might get it, but not actually administer it, which you don't do because someone's injecting you. But I think that's what.
Well, receive is you've received.
Yeah, but I think get is probably better because you don't want to sound too clinical. Formal. I think if that's what you're seeing as common usage, then that's what we should go with.
Now, given the fact that we have to be good researchers here, I will go and find several credible ways, just proof that this is the way. But that was the very first thing that struck me, was like, should I take the vaccine? Oh, that's an odd way of saying it. But then again, I am really precise about words, and so maybe it's just me. So let me make a note to myself. I'm going to just find a few sources so that you feel comfortable changing something like that. But that's kind of where my mind began, was, are we using the right words? On my analysis, I put anything that I suggested as an edit in blue, anything that is a commentary on the interface or the operation, the feature set, will be in red. And then in orange are just miscellaneous thoughts that just popped in my head. So the next thing is, help me correct this analysis. So are we asking them to correct the analysis, or to accept or refute it, or to support or negate it? Or, I mean, are we saying correct this analysis?
So yeah, we could, there's lots of options on this, and we should probably talk through them at some point, or now. I don't want them to just accept or deny or agree or disagree. So there is a feedback mechanism. I think that asking for correction shows in Gulli Bot humility, and someone had a phrase that I think it's a little too strong to include, but this is my current misunderstanding, right? So you don't even say that, you don't even presume that your opinion is a correct thing. And so that's something going around in a group that I'm attending. So I was thinking of that when I kind of wrote this.
Or just simply, this is what I currently know.
Well, but the main point of that thing is to express that we don't expect this to be perfect, and to invite them to participate.
But maybe that's the second sentence.
But I do say in the statement itself is, we also do want to share the point that this is based on just what I've been told so far, and that is
Right.
kind of down in there. So we can move all those around. I think but I do think I have them in priority order as the concepts I want to get by is that we don't expect it to be true. It's that you kind of obligate them to or encourage them to add information to it or it's wrong, and then that it's based, although we may change the order though. So I'm open to all that, but that was my thinking in going through the way it's crafted right now.
Okay. Okay. So that was the next thing. So one thing that's popped out at me at the next statement, that what's in purple, the based only on the 53 claims I've been told so far, I am confident that you should take the COVID vaccine if recommended by the CDC. So is that what all these claims are supporting or not supporting? Or are we making a judgment call that it is only if it's accepted by the CDC or recommended by the CDC? Like, I didn't get the CDC as being a critical component of whether or not to get the vaccine.
So
it's just one of many.
The detail of that is that there are some people that the CDC excludes from getting the vaccine. And so we wanted to be specific, not to say that everyone should get the vaccine. So there might be another way to word that. But the thing is,
Okay.
does the CDC recommend that you get the vaccine based on your medical history? Because if you're going through, you're not supposed to get it if you're during chemo, probably. I don't even know if that's true or not, but I would assume.
So okay, during chemo.
So because if we make this, I do want to make the statement more bulletproof to where someone could just come back with a quick rejoinder that says, oh, why, are people with chemo supposed to do it? And then they dismiss it. So it's a balance between keeping it short, but making sure that there's no like obvious flaws in the logic.
Right.
So however we can decide to say if you're supposed to take it.
Okay, got it.
If you're medically able or some other way of phrasing it.
Okay, I see. So I do know my sister is a cancer survivor and she can only have the Johnson & Johnson.
Oh, interesting.
Based on whatever
criteria
that was, but she could not have anything but that one. Yeah, so I know that there are these reasons. So, okay, so that's helpful to know. Mm-hmm. And I'll always, whenever you have a phrase that I'm calling into question, if you just tell me what it is you're trying to say, I'll find the words to say it the right way.
That's good. I like that.
Okay. Let's see. And so a lot of this stuff too is in a sense minutia, but I want to make sure, again, precise words.
Yeah. I like that.
So if I'm incorrect, please look through my reasons below and tell me what I'm missing on Twitter or anonymously. When you read that, what I'm missing on Twitter, it's as if the things I'm missing are on Twitter. So is it via Twitter?
Oh, so yeah, no, yeah. So tell me what I'm missing. Well, so the longer way of saying it is what I'm missing, period. And then tell me what I'm missing. You can use Twitter or do it anonymously using this link.
Right.
So a shorter way of saying that makes sure that.
Yeah, just using the word via, unless that's a little too highfalutin.
No, that's
or using.
It is bordering. Yeah, yes, I'm fine with either of those.
Okay. All right.
I do want to keep it very plain spoken. Using may be better. So using any other words, better,
yeah, using is better for what I'm missing. Using Twitter or.
Yeah, once you say using, then anonymously.
Exactly, doesn't work. I'll fix that one. I'll see. Okay. I'll see what I can come up with.
Yeah, think through some wording on that.
Yeah. Okay. Oops. Hitting the wrong button there. There we go.
And the wording you come up with will be used almost everywhere, including, we'll probably put it on the homepage, because that's the main thing we want to point together is that, don't just disagree. Tell me why you disagree.
And here are the two mechanisms, the preferred mechanisms for getting in touch with us to let us know that you disagree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could also, another option you want to do via, and you could just say these ways, and we could underline that, and that link could take you to Twitter or anonymous. Mm-hmm. So we could have another landing page. So if you think about, feel free to completely reorganize that as long as the the options are there.
Well,
You
also
probably prefer Twitter because it's public and I don't have access to delete it, so people know that
that you're not editing and
Yeah.
skewing. I think that's great. I mean, I think the two mechanisms are fine, but when you say submit anonymously, is that through a form on the website? Is that through your contact form?
So on that link is using a service that allows you to submit anonymously. So if you want to just click it, I think it should
there
open
we
up
go.
another window.
Yeah,
So
free suggestion box.
Yeah, and if there's another option, that'd be good. But I just did someone said, I really don't want to post this on Twitter, and I realized with everyone being canceled, I can understand that. So I said, oh, I'll give you an anonymous way too, and that way they know it's anonymous for me. It may not be, you know, the owners of that website may know, but there's no way I can know. So.
Got it. No, I think that's fine. Always the fewer clicks, the better to take action. So making sure that the process of leading them to give you the feedback that you're urging them to do is as seamless as possible, and that it's clear that that's what you're saying. And again, sometimes this is semantics in a way. And so it's like, what do the masses understand and what is just creating less friction?
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
I like that.
So now what happens is when I do click to ask this on Twitter or to put this on Twitter, it just gives a link with zero anything else. It just links to that little section.
Well, go ahead and click on it.
Okay, yeah, let me go. 1 second, let me go pop over there. That's it. That's all I see. So I see it down there. So should I take, but there's no context above. Typically, when somebody clicks on a link, are we assuming that they're going to fill in their own information there?
Well, they're giving us feedback. So yeah, I don't know what to add. We might be able to add a prompt.
Yeah, let me think.
Like type over this to say what do you want to do, but I
see what you're saying. You're wanting them to give feedback. So this is less about them sharing, hey, come over here and talk to, participate in this conversation, and more give us feedback. And so it auto-populates at Gulli Bot, so then you see it. Okay. Yeah, I'm just so used to when you click on a tweet that it kind of populates with the title of something, not just down below, but also above.
Yeah. A lot of times you're sharing it out. And so there's some prepared content.
Yeah.
We could start it with, I disagree with Gulli Bot because or something like that. And then they would. So if you want to think of any prompts that would be not weird.
Okay, not weird prompts. Okay, I'm putting that in my notes. Not weird prompts for.
Not that you would ever suggest anything weird, but I will.
I don't know. Yeah. So what you're asking them to tell you is what's missing. What am I missing? Gulli Bot wants to know, what am I missing? So it could even just say, Gulli Bot, you're missing ...
Yeah, something like that. One of the thought is just to keep in mind for this whole kind of overarching process is that I'd like to have a way to make sure that they've looked at the statements below before they comment, because they may not be able to find the information, but I don't think there's any way in the UI to do that very well. So, but I just want to bring it up in case you have any thoughts, is that I wouldn't like a whole bunch of people not even read the statements below. But I also want them to comment. Yeah, and then right away comment before they even read any of those. And that's another reason to kind of keep that list short. So people read them all before they comment. But and we could talk about whether it should be pre-opened or not.
Yeah, so this is what people. Well, that's not what they first see. That's what they first see. Then the next thing.
One thing to keep in mind is that they will often get a link directly to the topic.
Directly to that, which is when they share it.
And that's kind of why we have to explain a little bit about Gulli Bot, that it's on the homepage, because that people will be sharing the individual topics. So this will be a lot of people's first landing page.
So if that's the first landing page, don't you already say the same sort of thing down below? And aren't you
Yes.
also contradicting, because you say you can contact me on Facebook or by email
Yeah.
to info at this domain, or even, so now you've added Facebook into the mix.
Yeah, I actually wrote that before and then I added it in there, and I just really haven't removed it. But there was some reason where I was thinking I wasn't quite sure about the wording yet. So maybe you can tell me it's what we have up there is good and just delete that and just let me know. Or if there's anything we also need at the bottom, I guess not. But I was kind of thinking about it. Some of these things I just kind of throw in on a weekend and forget.
Well, I was wondering,
but that is confusing.
If they arrive at this page, do you have to say it above, or if this can be pervasive instruction no matter where they're at? Is this a footer that is always going to show up, so even as they open, they'll still see these are the instructions, like how to interact with Gulli Bot, do this, and then you don't need it up here where they may just immediately click before even reading further.
Yeah, so the what we're balancing in is I want them to read all that before they hit the more info. So that's the balance. And yes, right now, and we may not be able to accomplish all these goals. But and then we need to decide the priority. What's the priority thing? I think I'd almost want them. I mean, if anyways, yeah. So and that was a kind of a generic footer that I was going to put at each of them. But then I was realizing I want to make sure they know that there's this feedback pipeline and that's their responsibility and that's part of the process. Because so many times you go to a media website and you don't, you could put something in the comments, but no one ever reads the comments. So we got to kind of retrain the audience that this is an option. So I'd almost rather have it as something they have to read before they can get to the content and take it off the bottom. And that's why I put it in the comment itself to kind of make sure they read it.
Can you even just say before you click more info, colon,
you know what we could also do is make it to where when they click more info,
it pops
then
up.
Then it comes up, or then it's the first thing under the thing. So we could save that till a little later. Although I don't know if that really helps.
Yeah, in a sense, having it in multiple places and popping up in multiple ways is 10 times better than having it in one place, thinking that you know how they're going to consume it, read it, or what their path is going to be like.
And let me also mention one other thing is that you can in the system link to a child claim, to a descendant claim. So we may not be able to do it now, but at some point we'll need to think through what's the experience when they come in and they look at a descendant claim, and how will they kind of know this information? I mean, technically it's still on the screen, but are they going to read from the top and go down? And I could actually show you how to do one of those if you click more info.
Okay.
And then open up one of those. And then the tweet about this claim. Yeah. And so, and then that link at the top links to that. If you want to copy that link.
Yep.
And paste it. So if they come, it'll do that.
So in a sense, they could start at the top and read it, or they could try to zero in to see just that one specific thing.
So you don't have to think on your feet right now, but at some point, all these kind of decisions on the wording and the placement stuff needs to also take in the three paths, which is home screen, the direct to the link, and then to a subclaim. And we can do all sorts of stuff. So if you say, okay, I want it to be this, I want in that text to be in the descendant claim that's highlighted, and I don't want it to be in the top one, and I want the other ones to be grayed out. But oftentimes they want so there's no, since I'm the developer, there's almost no technological limitations.
Okay. Okay, I'll think about that. Have you ever focus grouped or like really formally had people go through and answer specific questions?
So I've had maybe 6 people sit down and I say, go through this and talk about, so I kind of do the general quality, what's it called? User experience testing, or UX. So yeah, so I try not to lead them anyway, just they talk about it, and then and that's how. some of the other comments you made, I've gotten feedback on, and I haven't figured out how to fix it yet. So
Okay.
hopefully we could do that together. Like the more info button that you mentioned, I noticed that one, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like that either. So we can talk about that. Oh, and the other restriction that I don't know if I don't think I've mentioned yet is the primary experience that I want to prep for is mobile. And that has restricted some of the design criteria. So when we get to talking about that more info button, some of the solutions aren't great for mobile. And I really think for something like this, most people are going to be getting an email from a friend and opening it up on their phone. So I primarily want to design for mobile, and then we can enhance for desktop.
Okay. Even just putting more info all in capital letters, because nothing else is all in caps except for COVID.
Right. That's a
But
good
even
idea.
just putting it in
And I could
caps.
also change its color and all. And I didn't want it to be too screamy, although maybe we could have it after they click it go smaller. And I could even make it towards that. So it has that whole text. Click the more info link to see the claims below. Maybe that whole line disappears after you click it. I threw that in at the last minute. I actually just edited the text.
So wait, okay, so
it actually disappears, so you don't accidentally hit it again.
There, it does.
But then that's part of the confusion you were talking about on how to get back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk about that now, or if that's a couple down, we can wait on that conversation.
Yeah, well, let's kind of go through systematically real quick, but
sure.
But yeah, how to get back was definitely, it took me quite a while to figure all that out.
That's probably the biggest UX challenge.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, so now I understand about the auto-populate. Okay, and since this is a different purpose, we don't need that note. I added how I score claims. I put that into the content edit, and I'm going to go through it just to make sure it's clear. So we move on to the next thing. All right, they will reduce your chance of getting seriously sick due to COVID-19. So this to me goes to the idea that if they jump in the middle, they is vague. So can we always repeat a vaccine or the vaccines or be specific? Because should you take or should you get the COVID-19 vaccine, the vaccine will reduce, or a vaccine will reduce your chance, as opposed to they, because what's they?
Yeah, so the decision on how much context to put in each claim will be something that we'll need to kind of figure out a pattern for. I think when you're on the first page where you open it up, it's like if someone had a paragraph and they kept using the person's full name like all the time, it would seem a little weird, but it definitely can be helpful in this case. Now, I also don't mind if they say, well, who's they? And then they have to read up, because I do want them to read the top. So we need to balance all that. But I'm definitely open to the idea of more consistently not having it to where they have to read the context above to get it. But we also don't want to make the claims too long to include all the context.
I agree. So
it's a balance.
If you do the repetitive thing, think about it. Gulli Bot is a robot. So it's almost a natural pattern to always say, being that same, a vaccine will do this, a vaccine won't do that, a vaccine is da da da.
Like, as long as it's not too annoying, but
yeah. I just kept getting hung up on they.
So I definitely want to. So yeah, what you think about a little bit more and give me your opinion on that. That's something I was struggling with.
Yeah, and so because one of the things I put down, if you put the vaccines, now it opens up the question, which one? If you put the vaccine, same thing, but saying a vaccine, it mirrors the parent question.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, they won't know for sure that it's a vaccine unless they read the top. They won't know it's a COVID vaccine, and some of the details later on will be specifically about. But that's probably close enough, right? They'll figure that out.
Yeah. So then the other thing, as I got further down, I would see myth, and then factual something or another. And so what I'm wondering is, can we also preface it as claim, they will reduce your chance, or a vaccine will reduce your chance. Claim, colon. So that,
Yeah.
because we know that these colors and the ones with the buckets, these are claims. And then clearly you chose to label some of those claims myth or fact. So is that just adding too many words? Is that just...
Well, so the generalized format, I think, will be, I want Gulli Bot to express its opinion on what it's about to say. And I think that's important, especially because of myths, because if you don't say that first, you can lead them. They'll be thinking about, and they may just remember and assume the Gulli Bot agrees with it, because a lot of people don't even read the last couple words of a sentence, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's important for myths. And then at the top one, we say based on claims, but it says I am confident at the beginning. So the formula, I think, should be, now a claim doesn't tell you what Gulli Bot's opinion is. And the bucket's supposed to do this. So this is really kind of a repeat of the bucket, but it's a little bit more nuanced. The bucket just tells you how much weight this has, but Gulli's opinion will be also a little bit of why, because it's either myth, which is a truth thing. It could also be irrelevant, but be 100% true, right? Or very low relevance. So I think we'll have all these common sentences, phrases at the beginning, and they're not in there now because I don't know. Yeah, but we just haven't been consistent. So theoretically, this should probably say something like, I'm confident that they will reduce, or if we want to be really long, based on the items below, I'm confident. But since we said at the top, we may not need to. But yeah, I'm confident that they will reduce your chances of getting serious due to COVID-19. And then maybe at the end of that, say based on 8 claims below, if you think that's needed. So that was my thought. It was state the claim, state the opinion about the claim in words that matches the bucket, state the claim, and then at the end, add any additional context that we think would be helpful, like links or something, if we needed to add more weight to why we made that decision at the beginning. We want to make sure that they get the correct, they know how Gulli is grading it based on the first part of the sentence.
Okay.
And that's all just my thoughts. So I'm open to other options.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
and we'll need to document that. So as I have Vicky and other researchers come online, I mean, all this I'd like to eventually document so we know the voice of Gulli Bot and patterns.
Okay. Right. So let me just type that in really quick. Document. Okay.
Yeah, we could almost prefix a lot of these with I believe or I'm confident. And I can even have that programmatically generated based upon that, the numbers in the background. But sometimes when you do that, the wording doesn't make sense on some sentences. You know, how English is a little wonky. What I'd like to do is go through it and let's do it manually for a couple times, and then maybe we can extract the patterns out. I could code the little prefix in there.
Okay.
Or the beginning of a sentence. It's not a prefix, but
yeah. Okay. Sounds good. The next part. So clicking on the bucket changes the view. It took away all the other claims. How do you get back? The more info link, not obvious. Should the link to open everything be more info or expand view? That was another one of my thoughts, expand view versus more info.
yeah. So this is where the mobile thing is kind of skewing, because the way you'd kind of do something like this often is you would have, like in Microsoft Windows, you'd have the little plus and minus signs on the left, or in Reddit, or arrows, right, that point sideways and point down. But on mobile, and maybe I don't know if you know how to in Chrome simulate a mobile phone. I don't know if you've ever done that before. Let me do some quick sharing and.
Okay. Because isn't it dot dot dot? that is the sort of universal symbol for there's
Yeah, and
more stuff here. Ellipses, yeah, ellipses.
Yes. Let me show you. So if
Okay.
I can show you how to get to this if you want to, but it simulates a phone.
Mhm.
So there's not really, if I added room here for a plus or minus sign, it'd be pretty small. And so that's why I haven't done that, or even an arrow that turns. I couldn't quite figure out how to fit it in there well.
Mhm.
And so that's why I put something in there now. So if you, the concept, the bad concept is that, you want to see more info on this, so you click the more info on that, and that's how you get back up. So I don't know if I left something here to click, it's not really close. It is kind of close, but really what you're doing is now I want to go back to my parent.
Return to, yeah.
Yeah.
Return.
So if we could think of what wording to say there, then I can add it. And I was thinking though, is there a reason? It would always take you one parent up, but if they wanted to go up several levels, like let's say you were pretty deep,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see how they run off the screen, but you on your mobile phone you can scroll it to read the one that you're on,
Okay.
because there was no other way to really handle it. They can click the more info all the way up here and go back to the top, and they'll probably figure that out. But yeah, going up back one level was the complicated bit. So yeah, so any thoughts on return would be fine.
Yeah, this is the first one, the parent, instead of more info, all claims.
Yeah, although you don't see them all when you open it.
Okay, got it. Yeah, okay, turn. It's so layered, and so it's like, what are the simple words to get them from layer to layer, level to level?
Yeah, I
But
think what was your
return,
suggestion you made a little while ago rather than more info? Expand. I mean,
expand
I
view
think is,
or expand. Yeah,
yeah, I
expand.
think that's good. I think my initial impression is that I think more info, or maybe something like on the top ones. Well, I'd like to be consistent.
We want to be consistent everywhere. You want patterns, you want repetition, because that's how they learn.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to brainstorm on that word, and we can discuss a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah.
Or it could just be ellipses, and then it could be an arrow pointing up.
But then I would also get worried that it would be
a little
less obvious, much less obvious than more info.
And like you said, suggesting to make it bold or bigger the first time they use it, or make that whole sentence, click the more info and have that be the link. And then after they click it, it kind of like shrinks up. Although then it's inconsistent with the other ones. But I did want it to be visually different so they know that it's not COVID-19 more info. And I was thinking about if it's bold and bigger, it's almost screaming at them the whole time. Although maybe that's good because we do want people to dig deep, right?
Keep digging, keep on digging. Yeah.
And it could be a button as well. It doesn't have to be text. I mean, so it could be made more visually like a button.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just didn't.
Or even just changing the font color and the font.
It's challenging with a purple and an orange to find another color that works.
Yellow?
And we could talk about color choices too.
Oh yeah, black.
For the text. So these colors are dark enough that I think if I used black text, the accessibility is not there.
Not as good. Okay. All right. Well, we could definitely work on.
But we could play with that.
Now that I kind of have a little better idea of what you're going for and what the challenges are. So not one vaccinated person has gotten sick enough to require hospitalization in clinical trials of the vaccines.
If you want to continue sharing again.
Oh, whoops. Did I stop sharing? You took over.
I kicked you out.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hold on. I'm doing. Here we go. There we go. So some of these things, I don't know what the grammatical term is, but your main point, not one vaccinated person has gotten sick enough to require hospitalization. That's your main point. In the clinical trials of the vaccines coming after that main point, it sounds like the hospital, if you've reversed it, in the clinical trials of the vaccines, not one vaccinated person. So you're setting the stage for the limit of the idea that not one of them has, as opposed to say not one of them has, and then as an afterthought mentioning that it's only in these clinical trials. I don't know if this is making
no,
sense.
it's a lot of these, including this one, is entered by Vicky, and we might have some resources where English is not their initial language. So some of them will come in worded a little, and she may have actually been quoting this from a source.
Sometimes they are quoting from the source, and I was trying to leave them there.
I don't think, unless we're actually going to quote the source and put the text, I don't think there's any requirement. This is Gulli Bot rephrasing, because a lot of times the sources say it wrong, right? They say it misleadingly or something like that. So I did give the instruction to Vicky, don't worry about doing the source unless Gulli Bot in its explanation wants to quote the source, then put quotes around it and do it verbatim. But outside of that, let's use Gulli's voice instead of anyone else's. The only thing about that is I like having the main point first, because it's easier for someone to scan the reasons without having to read all the caveats. In some cases, there will be quite a few caveats. But your point is well taken, that it makes the sentence structure a little weird. Another option is just go ahead and, although for this one, I can't think of a good way to break it up into 2 sentences. So they can read the caveats when they get to it, so they're there. But having the caveats kind of up front, or the limiting factor up front, sometimes would make them
takes away from the main point. How about simply caveats and parentheses? I'm not a fan of using parentheses when it's an important component, and yet in a situation like this, you're grouping any caveats together while allowing the main point to stand out.
Yeah, I think in this, I like the idea of parentheses. I think we'll use that in some cases. I think in this case that is almost a little bit too far away, because it's important in this case that it's not like no one has ever gotten. But I definitely see your point. So it would be difficult to balance all those objectives. And remember, what we don't have on this one is also Gulli Bot's analysis as the first step. So we're making it even farther. I did think at some point to just highlight the main point, or bold the main point. So then we could have Gulli Bot's analysis. And although I want them to read the analysis, see, this is as always, there's too many competing desires.
Well, here's the thing, that it is a desire to have them read the analysis. It's a reality that they won't, so convey as much as you can to get sufficient point across without them having to read it.
Yeah. So another option is to put the analysis, and then the shrinking the idea, like you said, in the clinical trials, and then put the main point in bold. Although in this specific case, not getting, I think in the clinical trials is, you probably don't even need to say other vaccines on that one, but in the clinical trials is really critical in this case. Right. But other cases, I think
it might not be.
Figure out a way to put the qualifiers in a second sentence or in parentheses, because even the thing like in the top one, if recommended by the CDC, most people are going to assume that. And it's just there for the grammar lawyers so they can't just ding us on having it.
The CDC says that I should not be getting this, and now you're telling me I should.
Right.
That kind of thing. Yeah, I got that. I assume that, so there's that statement that pops up. I assume this claim is 100% accurate because I have not been given a reason to doubt it. I am gullible. If you feel this claim is incorrect, give me your specific reasons and evidence on Twitter or anonymously. There it is. Give me your specific reasons and evidence on Twitter or anonymously.
Yeah, you can tell I wrote the verbiage for these 3 things at completely different times.
Yeah, that one is closer to what I was trying to get at, I think.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it is nice if we have the room to say reasons and evidence, because that's really what I don't want just their opinion. I want to know why. So feel free to combine all those, and then we could talk about where or craft something better, and then we can figure out where all to display it.
Okay. And it says, when does this assumption appear? That little
So keep going down. So on the bottom line there, hit the more info, and let's see, if you just keep going down, you'll
Right,
eventually hit one that has no children.
So that's when it appears. It appears when there are no children. When there's no other claim against it, for or against it, then that thing pops up. Okay, I was assuming that's when no other claim for children, it pops in. Okay, it populates. Okay, perfect. But I do think that wording is a much better way, and we should just bring that one to the top, to the bottom, wherever we decide to put it. Consistency. Okay, now, now that I know I have to go all the way up to the more info at the top to go check out the rest of them, COVID may cause long-term negative side effects. Oh, okay. And so I think I mentioned this to you before. At first, I was starting to get a dissonance between it may cause long-term negative side effects, but this is purple, and purple is supposed to be the pros.
So I think, yeah, that one's backwards.
Yeah.
So on these, we were going back and forth, and I think that's how that happened. We were like, it's a good thing that it has very low side effects, right? Or low long-term negative side effects is the way we first phrased it. And Vicky's like, well, that doesn't sound right in some way. So it was purple. So we had to change the name, but we should change to orange. And so the reason we do want to say it phrased that way, but it should be orange, is because there is a chance of negative side effects. So we changed the wording, but we forgot to flip the color.
Oh, okay. So that's currently.
And also the score's wrong also, because it should be, I mean, if you think about it, it should be orange and it should be a very low bucket, because it's true, but it's very rare. So the impact of that statement on the main thing should be very small, but there. So we were trying to give them credit for that concern.
But it should be low credit.
Yeah. Unless they have a reason.
Right.
If they prove that everyone's is dying from it, then sure, we'll move it up. So yes, that one should definitely be orange, and then the scoring below. Right now, if we switch that to orange, it would be 0. So we need to figure out how to add in the evidence correctly so that it gives you a low score.
Okay. Got it. All right, I'm just putting out and then figure out the score. Okay, so that wasn't me being crazy.
No.
Okay. Approximately 30% of cohorts. Yeah, approximately 30% of a cohort of individuals with COVID-19 who were followed up for as long as 9 months after illness reported persistent symptoms. I was just trying to figure out a different way of saying it, and I put a.
Yeah, I think that's another one where Vicky kind of quoted it directly, when Gulli would probably just say something like,
well, she did quote it directly, because I remember.
Oh, wait, you know what? No, I'm wrong on all this. COVID-19 may cause long-term side effects. No, that's not one that should be reversed. That should be purple. I was thinking this was about the vaccine preventing. This is. Oh, wait, let me see.
Okay, COVID may cause long-term negative side effects.
Okay, so yeah, no, I'm sorry. This is the problem. I keep getting it backwards.
Okay.
So that is a reason to take the vaccine. So that's why it's purple.
Oh, because it's not the vaccine that may cause the side effects. Yeah. It's COVID that would cause side effects. So it is a pro. It's just, I think what the dissonance is, the word negative makes you think it's a con when it's the disease itself versus the vaccine.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about this is that you came in and read that. So now we need to think of a way to kind of rephrase that so that people don't get that incorrect intuition. I even got it sitting here, right?
That's okay. So it's, again, it's COVID-19, the disease, versus COVID-19 vaccine. So what if we just put the COVID-19 disease may cause? And now we've differentiated immediately from the vaccine. And
and a nuance to think about is that the the virus is SARS-CoV something, but yeah, the disease is
right.
COVID-19. So
The
so
disease
that's
is
accurate.
COVID-19. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't see any obvious mentions
Incorrection
of
to
the
that.
SARS,
Yeah.
because I had actually put that in one of my edits, and I thought, you know what, you haven't introduced that anywhere. It would cause
Yeah.
confusion.
Yeah. I
So I
guess we
took it
got
out.
lucky so far. One thing we could also do on this line that I want you to consider is you could say the COVID-19 vaccine may cause long-term negative side effects. We could even say, so you should take the vaccine. We can clearly state
Right.
why this claim is supporting its parent.
So the COVID-19 disease may cause long-term negative side effects. Are we saying so
Which
you
would be,
should take the vaccine, or are we just stating which the vaccine can minimize?
yeah. Any way to tie it back to the main point clearly. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. All right, I put that into the
Which
text.
the vaccines have been shown to minimize or something like that.
Which the vaccines,
However.
have been shown to minimize. Okay, still trying to keep the words down. Got it. So the next one, the approximately, is it open? Yeah, approximately 30%.
Yeah.
That is pulled, but the next sentence is this. Approximately 30% of outpatients in a study reported persistent COVID-19 symptoms for as long as 9 months after illness. It's kind of saying the same thing. It sort of repeated itself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still close to the statement that's actually made in that study.
Yeah. Now, the way I think Gulli Bot would say this is that it could be something as simple as okay, well, actually, I think you can take that claim completely out and just put the study underneath in the claim of COVID-19 may cause long-term negative side effects. There are times that we need to add a child, but there's some places where I was telling Vicki to do it and I wasn't clear on when to do it, so she kind of broke some out without need.
Okay, so that one, you're just saying that report basically says what the COVID may cause the long-term side. So there's no need to restate it and then add another child. You just simply put that report as supporting evidence to that previous statement.
Yeah, if we think it's clear enough. And then if someone comes in and counteracts that report, we could either choose a different one, or we would break it down, put their orange claim in, put the purple claim in, and then have the debate go on down there. But yeah, in some cases, so I told Vicki wrong at some point, and then we haven't corrected everything. But this is one where I would say we moved it down and we just need to pull it back up. But that's also up to your opinion. I mean, maybe we do need some context on where the report says it. Although you'll notice in some of these links, Vicki has already added it to where when you click the report, it highlights the text.
It. Yeah, it highlights it. I noticed that. At first I was like, oh my God, is that like psychic that it highlights? And then I realized it's right there in the code of the link.
Yeah, so that was
funny.
recently.
I was just like, whoa.
Chrome just added that a couple of months ago, and all
That's
the browsers will have it soon. It's now a new web standard.
Yeah, it actually was extremely helpful because it just brings you right to the context. But I could see where looking at this, that study supports the statement as we would reword it, the COVID-19 disease may cause long-term negative side effects.
And the other thing is, if we did pull it up, but we thought it needed more context, we could add another sentence and then leave the link. So there's several ways.
Because all that is doing is just drawing attention to a summary of the study, as opposed to using the study to support the previous claim. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The next thing. All right. More info. Okay. Yes, we've assumed. So now let's go back to the top.
Well, another thing I think about is sometimes, I guess it's okay to have the more info and have that open. I wonder if it's a little anticlimactic. And maybe we should just have it show up without having them, although that would be kind of hard to code. So maybe I should.
Well, no. So I think, that's again where more info versus expand.
Yeah.
So we expand, in a sense, it's you can either think of it as anticlimactic, but you could think of it as a punctuation that tells me there's nothing further in this thread.
Yeah, it might be nice for them to just know subtly that there are no more claims. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, but that's a lot of text, and I'd like it to show. So I don't know. That's something to think about when you're thinking about the user experience.
Which is a lot of text. That whole thing, I assume this claim is a lot of text
Yeah.
to show. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if we showed it on every assumption. Now, I actually, what this should say is on that first one, I would like Gulli to say, I assume COVID-19. Well, here's here's a nuance. I'd like it to say something like, I assume COVID-19 may cause long-term side effects. But we also have a document that we're pointing to, so it's not quite an assumption, right? He's not just assuming the fact completely.
Assuming.
He's assuming it. He's assuming it's
something.
Correct, right? So maybe you could just say, yeah. So that's one of the nuances I haven't kind of figured out, is that a lot of times I wanted to say I assumed on every leaf node, anything with no children, but that didn't make sense if there's a link to external data.
So should we always say, I assume this claim is 100% accurate? Or I assume this claim is correct, accurate?
So I initially probably put 100% because I had the numbers showing, and now that I have the buckets, but it's also nice to have them know how Gulli's calculating it. Gulli doesn't just assume that. Gulli assumes it's 100% true and 100% relevant, and that's the way the math works. But yeah, how to explain that, and part of that text is repeated in how I score claims. So maybe as you work through that, we could pull the relevant parts back to this. Okay. Yeah, and even that statement is a little weird because he's not assuming the claim. It's assuming that that document asserts that, and that document is accurate. But it is the whole claim, and that document's part of the claim. So technically,
it's the claim.
Gulli Bot is assuming the claim, but how would humans say it? And like you said, it's okay if Gulli Bot's a little weird on how it says things.
How it says things, yeah. If you put that study on the above one, then it's better suited. You're putting it right now on a claim within a study versus putting it on the claim above.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why it seems like a little bit like, well, we're not exactly. We're saying we believe this document versus I'm assuming this claim is accurate.
Yeah.
Because it's not a claim if 30% of the cohort of individuals, if that's not a claim, that's a finding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, all these nuances.
Yeah, if you like being specific, you're gonna enjoy this. It might break your brain. Has broken mine.
Yeah, it might break my brain, or I might drive everyone crazy with specificity.
I mean, that's one good reason why you're only doing it for a couple, several hours a month, and not like a full-time 40-hour it's a work job.
Ooh.
I don't know that anyone can handle that.
Yeah,
until we have it all figured out. And once we have the kind of all the nuances figured out, then there'll be a process, and we could crowdfund and have journalists and researchers go out and populate these.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle though. For my brain, it's like a puzzle. I'm just trying to solve puzzles here. Okay, we've got this next one. There's low transparency. Oh, see, right now I clicked on the bucket instead of more info, and it performs the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It is the same click function exactly. Before I had the more info button, that's the way you do it, but it was completely undiscoverable. But so we could either take that off or leave it as a shortcut for people that know. But yeah, whatever you think there.
I think more ways to get to the right place is the best.
I used to have it to where you can click the whole thing, but then there's a problem where sometimes you'd want to click a link on it.
Link, so you don't want the whole thing.
Yeah. So, but that would be even more intuitive to click it at all. and it turns into a finger. Yeah, so any suggestions of that would be great.
Okay. So the next one is there's low transparency in the vaccines data reporting. So that left me with the question, to what end? Is low transparency a reason not to get a vaccine, or is low transparency leading to a lack of trust, which is a reason people are avoiding the vaccine? People who are concerned about low transparency seem to be more concerned about why there's low transparency, meaning the, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank on the most common thing. Conspiracy theories.
Right, yeah.
The question that entered my mind as I read it. There's low transparency in the vaccines data reporting.
Yeah, so this is one of those ones where this is very similar. And this is probably exactly what someone said to us in one of the reviews. So I had a couple people who are against vaccines go through the data. And one of them brought up, well, I just don't trust it because there's low data transparency. And that's a valid concern. But yes, rephrasing that to say, because of course the person's not going to give the most nuanced statement.
Right. They're not thinking about anything that's clear for all people. They're thinking about just themselves and what they're trying to express. So, there is low transparency in the vaccines data reporting, making vaccines less trustworthy, or because what is the...
Now, so that, on the top claim, not the one you have your mouse on right now.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
right. Yeah, so, yeah. I don't know. I can't think of a way to do that. All I'd like you to do is have you spend some time offline and really think about that. Because, yeah, something of the effect, because I don't want to say, because they're all liars, which is probably if you push someone, that's what they would say. But causes concern or
leading to
there might be
credibility.
Yeah.
Or
and the other thing is that actually calls into question some of the other studies that we're quoting in here. So should that claim be one of the main ones, and then we have to relitigate that, or should that be on every claim where it should lie? And this is some of the challenges of organizing this data. I still think it's kind of good to have it centrally as a main concern, first of all, so people can find it. And maybe this should be rolled up into everyone's lying about the data. Maybe that's just a polite way of saying that. Because the person knew that I took the vaccine, so they were probably couching their phrasing a little better than they would to their friends.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever you think on how to.
It's a trust issue.
Yeah. Maybe even just say it's difficult to trust the vaccines do everything that they say to do because there's very little transparency in the reporting. Although this would then be phrased in Gulli Bot saying it. So Gulli Bot may not say very little because Gulli Bot later on calculates it as. So even putting this in Gulli Bot's language is interesting. Maybe Gulli Bot would say the transparency of some of the data is not as good as we would like. And thus there are concerns of whether the reported efficacy is accurate.
So I see where you're going with it. I'm wondering about saying not as good as we'd like, because that's becoming extremely subjective. Because do we like it or not like it? Or
I mean, I do find in these things that you can't get very far away from just subjectivity.
Right. Transparency, not not sufficient transparency leading to concerns about efficacy.
Yeah. Or safety. It could be safety and efficacy.
Safety and efficacy. Okay.
Yeah, so we also need to phrase this one where Gulli Bot says at the beginning why it's kind of a low score there. Like there are some areas where some data, I mean, so why is the score positive for the people that want to take the vaccine? Why is it not 0? And then why is it not very high for the people that aren't taking that are scared about taking the vaccine? So just a little phrase at the beginning that says, what's Gulli Bot's conclusion based on what it's.
There are some areas where there is insufficient transparency about vaccines, leading to concerns about their safety and efficacy.
Yeah. Although the number's so low, I wonder if there's something we can say. Yeah, I don't. Although right now it's at about 25%. If you look at that, I would like to have it a little bit lower. It still sounds a little strong for that. But yeah, the phrasing is very kind of important, is how do we, and that's another reason why I don't think that phrasing can be fully automated, because this is a statement where you couldn't think of a common phrase at the beginning to automate that. So it may always be human.
Mm-hmm. So there is some insufficient transparency about vaccines, leading to concerns about their safety and efficacy.
Yeah. Yeah, that
some
may be
insufficient transparency. Okay. I put that in, it's all in that analysis document. Under the text edits are things that you and I have noodled with a little bit. I can certainly go through it again, but it's sort of options for you to change.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of them that are open, so maybe if you want to at your leisure do another pass, and then let's get together again and talk about your suggestions. And
okay. Oh, another thing was, whenever you have a study or link to an article, a link to a study, a link to a table, can you put a reference date? Because it seems like as you're looking at these, something from 2020 versus something from 2021, it helps us make sure everything is current and up to date. And also if something overrides something else, wouldn't the more recent typically override the older information? So meaning if you're looking at this and it says lack of transparency over vaccine trials, secretive, blah, 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 blah. Parenthetically, you put 2020, March 2020, or March 2021, or May 2021. So then as we grow this or complete this, these things that I think will be living organisms, we can even see, is this outdated information?
Yeah, I think that's good metadata to have. I'm not sure if it's good to display on every link.
Mm-hmm.
And actually for these, I talked to Vicky about shortening these to just be the text that you see is just really the person or organization that's presenting that data. So I don't even think we need the titles. I suggested that at the beginning, but it's kind of wordy and I don't know it's important. The main thing is that people, before they click on a link, want to have an idea of where it's going. Is this taking me to Fox News, or is this taking me to CDC? Is this taking me to?
Right. And so that's there, Transparency International Global Health.
Yeah. So I was suggesting to her to actually take off the title.
Mm-hmm. But then if it was the title and the date. So the CDC said this 3 months ago versus the CDC said this 1 year ago. So maybe we better revisit our data and see if we can find something new.
Yeah, so I think I could pull that data at any time from the system as it is, but I'm not sure it needs to be displayed to the user.
Okay.
And my other suggestion is to take the titles out.
Right. So take the titles out.
Okay?
I think that is okay, because once they get to it, they will see the title. Yeah. And I think it's much more important who is saying it, for sure, which is a question I have later. How do you vet your sources? Because one of the sources that we've claimed is on a controversial news site created by an Egyptian billionaire who everyone's wondering what his motive is, sort of like a Rupert Murdoch kind of deal.
Yeah. Egypt. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We could talk about that now, or we could talk about that in a minute.
I like to do things kind of in order so I
Okay,
don't
sure.
lose my place.
Yep.
But since it's already in there, we know we're going to get to it. Yeah, when I do my research, though, I always like to know what the dates are. And I've been doing a lot of research on celiac disease. And so many of the sources that people quote, they do not name their primary source, and they do not say when that primary source came out, that study came out, that report, that analyses, whatever. And then it's dig to try to figure it out, because I will always hold, I believe that the 2019 study may hold more credence or may build upon the 2006 study.
Yeah.
But if I don't see that as a person who's trying to figure out, well, how fresh is this info? How new is this info? So I'm going to kind of
I
know that you don't want to have the dates. You could have the metadata, but I really think people who are looking for validation also want to look to see what is the newest.
And do you think that's just for studies? Because it's like when the person tweeted it, that's not important. Yeah, but not like a tweet.
Not important. No, I think
But
it's whatever supporting evidence. I do believe that the date, the source and the date are the two most important things. It doesn't matter what the title is.
Now is it? Yeah. It's the date that the source was created or published, not the date that we read it.
Correct. Right? The date it was published, because that study could age out if some new study comes along that completely disproves it with a greater sampling, a longer duration, because as we move further and further away from the origins, the beginnings of COVID, for this in particular, we will have many more data sets to analyze. And so our accuracy becomes greater.
Yeah, I'm definitely open for the things like that are articles, or, kind of academic things, putting the date on there. So if we could write up for Vicky and the other internet researchers when to do that and when not, would be good. At some point. We don't have to do that right now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I that to me would be super helpful, because I was starting to question, like, how old is this info?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next one. Oh, okay. Another thing is a press release versus a news item. I'm thinking this is a press release. Lack of transparency. Let me just double check. Yeah, this is a sort of statement, press release. It is a press release, honestly. That's what it is. It's a press release. So a press release is not a neutral third-party news source. It's not a study. It is a publicity thing to promote one's own whatever. So should we be using press releases as news?
So
as evidence?
Yeah, one of the things that I was talking to Vicky about, because a lot of times she's trying to find something. So she'll even quote the CDC, and the reason in some places it's not good to quote the CDC is because in some of the CDC documents that are written for the average person, they don't link their sources. And this is more of an analysis. So we started moving to pages in the CDC where they link their sources so that people can go as far down as they want, and then we can move them in if we need to. So that's definitely a thing. So so press releases, it'd be better to go to the study or the studies that the press release is based on. So yeah, definitely that's something in the instructions that I think we need to kind of put down, because some of these I haven't reviewed and are from Vicky, and so she's finding but it is. Although I do want to push back on the reliability of the source. There will be times that we are quoting, like putting in studies that have been redacted because we want them retracted or redacted, because we want them to be there for people to find that are concerned about that study. So whether or not it's included is not based upon the quality of the source, just as long as the claims beneath it correctly weight that source appropriately. But there are definitely better sources, like you said, is like why quote the press release when you could quote the study that the press release is based on, right?
Okay.
So in a lot of these places where we're quoting the CDC, I would prefer to find the studies that the CDC based on and quote those. It's just Vicky and I think a lot of the researchers want to find a trustworthy source, but in my case, it's not. The higher priority is a detailed source, and then each source will then have its trustworthiness done in the claims beneath it.
So the way I always say it is I want to make sure that I get to the primary source.
Yeah,
and
right.
then
That's a good way to say it.
so then I look to the what's the source that's interpreting the primary source, and make sure that those who are interpreting it are the credible sources.
Yeah.
So the CDC interprets a study, but I want to link to that study. I will include the CDC's interpretation or the summary of, but it's the primary source where we're really getting
Now,
the
yeah,
support for
but
claim.
there's some, it's like it's always kind of a shortcut till someone debates it. So like the CDC is based on 100 studies, but there's a meta study that there's like
Yes.
4 meta studies. So we could just link to the meta studies. We don't have to link to the individuals. We can link to the CDC until someone says, hey, this study in there was in there. And then we break it down and say, and then we list out the 4 meta studies. And then if someone, so yeah, so the level of detail. So most of the time, I think primary sources will be the way to go. There will be times where we're just not that far down in the argument, and it's okay to link a little bit higher in that chain, just as long as they can find it. So that'll be one of the nuances that we have to kind of figure out as we go through. Because if people open it up and there's, the 500 studies on COVID vaccines, that would be a bit overwhelming. We may eventually get down there if people start arguing about them. But let's wait for that.
Okay. All right. So
a good representative study, like a meta study, I think, are often the best ones to go to if they've been done.
A good what? What was that?
A good meta study, a study of studies is often a good way to go.
Yes.
And then people can complain about the meta study, and then we'll have that debate.
There you go. Yeah. Then you branch out from there. Okay. So the next one is they will reduce your chance of death due to COVID-19. And I just put COVID-19 vaccines will reduce your chance of dying from the COVID-19 disease.
Yes, I think that's a good clarification. Adding disease and adding vaccine, yeah. Because I think that is
those are distinctions that are important.
Yep.
Okay. The next one, all authorized COVID, those are fine. Myth. Oh, so then what kind of got me stuck was I don't know what an antibody dependent enhancement is.
So this is another situation where Vicky, I think, was quoting them, and also because of her not being English fully fluent, not knowing what words are uncommon.
Terminology.
Yeah, and also trying to do quotes. So I lowered those, as I said, let's not bother doing quotes. And this may also be one where I told her to move it down in child, but you see there's only one child. Well, it is reversing it. So it is important to have this one below because it's a purple on an orange. But yeah, it could be something as simple as this study below counteracts the claim above. We don't even have to say why, because they can open up the study, but it'd probably be better to say this study shows that, and then explain why this study counteracts the top one.
Well, this is the first time we've seen myth and fact check.
Yeah.
This is the first time so far in this whole tree that I'm seeing it.
And so, we could say, like, instead of myth, we could say, and I'm sorry for interrupting.
No.
I believe this is a myth. I mean, it doesn't have to, that was just kind of how that's said, we can workshop as well.
And I don't mind it. I mean, it really set the stage, but it's sort of put a stake in the ground saying, hey, So what I was suggesting is parenthetically, when we do have something, even if you're quoting or not quoting, whatever you decide to do, if you have something that is not a layperson term, just to put in parentheses, and this one would be an antibody-dependent enhancement, parentheses, causing worse disease than before the vaccine, close parentheses. I didn't know that that was the meaning, but I had to look it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it'd be okay if we just left that out, just say there's no, this article claim, this fact check shows that there's no evidence to suggest COVID vaccines will kill people.
Okay.
Now, unless that article is only about the antibody, which it may be, yeah, it is. It is specifically on that one. Oh, because the claim is about it.
So the claim is about, okay, wait.
Okay, the top one is, oh no, this is interesting.
They will reduce your chance of death.
Oh, so this is one that I think it's in the wrong place completely.
Oh.
Because the fact that it'll reduce your chance of death from the vaccine has nothing to do with whether it's going to kill you. The vaccine is going to kill you. So
Right.
those are two separate claims. So actually this one probably needs to be moved up to the top, or if we have another claim that says COVID vaccines might kill you, which I don't remember if we have that. Because of side
we
effects.
only have the negative side effects. We don't have that it could cause death.
Yeah, and also we can choose to keep death and side effects together. I decided to break them up because they are substantially different. Although I don't know if you're in a coma for the rest of your life, death is pretty similar, but
true.
But those are the nuances that it's difficult. But I decided to separate them. So yeah, I would suggest this one be moved into a whole another area. The orange one.
Okay. Move this one into another area. Okay. Got it. And so you're saying that this last thing, there's no evidence to suggest will kill people, that should still be there because this is the fact check. And in fact, it's sort of repeating.
Yeah, so if you imagine the top claim under this one is myth, COVID vaccine, taking the COVID vaccine may kill you. And then underneath it, it says it may kill you from antibody-dependent enhancements. And so there might be a while that it may kill you because of another problem, or it may kill you because of the mercury, or it may kill you because of the additives. And so there'll be several of those. And then for each of them, we'll have an analysis on whether that statement is a myth or not.
Okay.
So this should be in a list of other ones that are similar. And you should only see it if you're digging down into the weeds. But yes, but still, to your point, putting in what antibody-dependent enhancement means would be helpful. Okay. I mean, I think people from the thing will know it's something that can kill you, but yeah, I think it's always.
I don't know. Well, yeah, it says may kill people, but because it's causing. But then I'm like going, what's an antibody-dependent enhancement? Enhancement sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, it might even be a good idea to link to the definition of that in some medical dictionary or something. But I think a little explanation to make it more human readable.
Yeah, and the simple one is causing worse disease than before the vaccine.
I would almost like to build a rule inside Gulli Bot that says if this word is in not the top 1,000 English words used in America, then we link to a definition, some sort of rule like that. So I don't know if you want to think about, not rule, but guidance for our data entry or our researchers.
Well, if it's a medical term or a scientific term, I mean, that's kind of a simple way of saying it. If it's a medical term or a scientific term, if you are not a doctor or a scientist, you're not going to have any clue what this means.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A few times though, I might have people that are getting their PhD doing this work. So they need to be reminded. But yeah, I think some way to tell them when to.
If your grandma won't understand this.
Right, yeah.
The non-scientific, it's the grandma test. Okay.
Yeah.
right, clicking back to return.
Unless your grandmother's a scientist.
Right, exactly. Let me go. I know.
Your non-technical grandmother.
They will reduce your spread of COVID-19. We already said that. Yeah, any place that it says they, I just had the comment, vaccines will reduce. Okay, results from, I didn't really have anything else on those. Same comment for they for the next one, they. And I didn't really have another comment until vaccines bring out the human immune system. Where's that one?
And when you're documenting these, if you also want to use that Twitter link to get a link directly to it, so you can find
that's a great point. And I hadn't really realized that it was going to go straight to the child. So I can start using that and just make.
And we should probably somewhere, except I haven't figured out where in the UI, a link that you could just right click and copy. Like I don't know if you know in Twitter, the date you can, on a tweet, you can right click and it'll give you a link directly to that tweet.
Yes.
So we need something like that. I just haven't figured out where to put it. Anyways.
I'm just trying to figure out where, if it's under myth. Hold on, was it under myth? Yeah, Euronews. That was the one where I just thought.
We could find a better.
Yeah, just wondering, because clearly we want some global news, because if we're saying recommended by the CDC, that doesn't apply to anyone else, because other countries are looking at World Health Organization, right? They're not looking at CDC. They couldn't care.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to link to the best source, even if it's not related.
Well, I'm just saying it's very Americanized, and then suddenly you throw in a European one. So
yeah.
So if we start off talking about the CDC, which is a United States of America entity, it's not a global entity.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think the main point is, does it cause it? Although, to be exacting, we probably shouldn't. This is one of the cases where we should be linking to a study and not to
an article.
A debunking.
Yeah.
Ideally, although it's fine, but as long as, I mean, if we can, so if we can find a resource in the US, that would be better. If there's a really good one in European, but it does debunk the claim very well or refutes it, then I would be okay using it. So yes, I agree, your preference for that.
Yeah,
but it doesn't, as long as they're talking about the same vaccines that we use here, it's
right. And there's some variation, because they have, in some countries, they're using the AstraZeneca. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the one that we haven't, CDC hasn't approved yet.
Has not approved. Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, at the very beginning, we're specifying or we're qualifying CDC. Do we want to, at the beginning, to qualify as CDC or World Health Organization, since it's dependent upon where in the world you live? And then that opens up the ability to quote global news sources.
So I guess I understand that we're doing the CDC, and the fact the CDC is just a kind of limiter to limit the scope of the debate, but evidence could come from anywhere.
Anywhere. Okay, as long as it doesn't contradict, or well, it might contradict.
Yeah.
Eventually it might contradict. Okay.
But I do agree with you that it'd be preferable to use sources, if you're limiting it, to use sources from within that, just because people get a disconnect. So yeah, I think we need to have a note in regionally located ones, prefer evidence in the region. But if we were talking about a small town in China, we wouldn't mind quoting studies done by the National Health Service, or like if NHS in the UK did a good study, you probably want to quote that. But yeah, it'd be good to prefer data from within if there's good data.
Okay. So that was as far as I got, and that's pretty close to the end. I think then we just started getting into the negative side of this one. I did not go through all of these.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of the things that I've commented on, if we can figure out patterns or rules or guidelines, can then inform any level.
Yeah, really. So there's two tests that you can take on. One is kind of building up those rules and then thinking about what can we ask Vicky to do to give her better guidelines than what I gave her to make this effective. And then also, as you have time, to double check her reworking of it and maybe to do some of it yourself to make sure that it's so whatever level you think is appropriate as far as you designing the process and doing the process. There is one other thing that I want to bring to your attention there. You see that X in the like the fourth orange down, fifth orange down.
Oh, I do see that X. I would not have noticed that, but whoops. Sorry, I just clicked something that made it disappear. There we go. Yes.
So the X is, this is a mix up in my UI, but I can't quite figure out what I wanted to do. That claim is making its parent 2 times as important. And there's also a division one that is saying, so basically you can put a claim that says my parent is more important than the other claims that it's my parent's siblings. And you can put a claim that says my parent is less important than its siblings. And that's multiplies it by 2 or divides it by 2. And if you have 3 of the 2, if you have 2 of those multiplies up, then that would be a times 3. And if you have 4, it'd be times 4. So you're giving reasons, and that's how you manage the weight, the importance of a claim. But how to tell them that this is raising the importance of its parent is a visual nomenclature I haven't figured out yet. So I used to say times 2 when I had the numbers, but then I put on the buckets and took the numbers off. I think it may just need to say times 2 and then have an explanation somewhere where people say, what the heck is a times 2? Because you had buckets before.
So it'd be times 2, and then the other one would be
divided by
2. So like the division
sign.
sign.
The old division with the line and the dots.
There's
because the slash doesn't make much difference.
How do you do a division sign when you're typing? There is no division sign.
You have to, yeah, it's tricky.
It's old fashioned.
Yeah, there's some websites where you can copy it and paste it.
Okay. It could be a division.
So I could just, on that example, I could have the number 2 there. So it'd be x2 and then divided by 2.
Oh, it's option plus slash.
What was that?
Hold on, let me just try it. Option plus slash. No, option. Meaning there's a keyboard combination to get that old sign.
But I have it populated in there, so you all know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was just trying to figure out how to type it in my notes.
Oh, right.
Okay. Got it.
So that's part of the UI I still need to figure out how to express these claims or raising or lowering its parents' importance.
Okay. Got it. That's a UI challenge, 2 tasks to do, build the rules, and then double check the work and or rework. Got it. Fix the statement. More info. Okay. Just looking at my notes to make sure when a few days pass and then I go back and start to go through my notes, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I mean? All right, just making sure they're clear. Okay, now on text edits, I feel like we need to get to a place where you can say, okay, I approve these text edits, and then the text edits are made and we can just take them off the task list.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that I need to know priority wise, should we go through and make some of these text edits on this COVID set of claims? Or have I done this exercise? We now need to think of rules and guidelines, and we'll put the text edits in the process once all these guidelines are in place, and those text edits will be made then. Like, do we go in and do a little surface cleanup with just text edits? Or do we save those text edits until I've come up with some rules and patterns and then incorporate that as part of the editing process?
I think as long as you're recording that we need to take these text edits and remember to make it a pattern in the kind of the pattern library, as long as we don't lose that when we close them. Because you also have, like the they thing you have in there several times when you remember one. So maybe at the point we approve that text edit, you add another line for put in a rule. I'm okay doing it either way. I think it'd be nice, people are kind of looking at it and I'm sharing it, so it'd be nice to do some cleanups, like make a decision on the they thing and the decisions on the links, and then what we might do is you kind of approve them, and then we'd let Vicky know and she can go and do the edits for us.
Well, you approve them. Like I get them. Right. I get them in shape.
Yeah.
For you,
I would approve them, yeah.
And then send them to approval. Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to add a column for approved, and then we can just give this to Vicky and she can go in and make the changes as long as they're clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I think I may want to add a column. These will be very narrow columns, so they won't take up a lot of space, but I want to add a column saying that it's been sort of final edit, because since I've kind of gone in and made a few little notations and changes while we were speaking, I'll go through and do a final review and then mark, this is a final, this is a final, this is not a final, this is a final. Then you know what you're approving.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's not a final. It just means we need to have further discussion, or we made a decision not to do something.
Yeah.
And yeah, that way we're sifting through and being extremely clear. You know exactly what to pay attention to, what to approve. Once it's approved, she knows exactly what to edit, what not to touch. I don't want to lose the order of things. I just don't want us to play with or mess with something that we decided not to.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. I will make sure and I'll go through and I'll add those. And then I'll let you know through Telegram when it's ready for you to make surface approvals. And then as I'm making these changes, I will decide, is this a rule? Is this a pattern? Should this be pervasive? And if so, what is that rule?
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Great.
And then, yeah, at some point, when you want to get your hands dirty, I'll train you how to actually edit the data, but that's not important now.
Yeah, I think right now I'm
better.
Global
big picture.
Yeah, and then I can get granular, and I always do like learning the technical aspect, rolling up sleeves, because if Vicky wasn't available and something needed to be fixed right away, but you didn't have time, you could say, Lisa, can you just jump in and make that correction?
Yeah.
So I have no problem with that. I like to learn new things.
Cool. Well, we took an hour and a half. I'm happy with that, but
okay.
Hopefully I didn't take you too long.
No, this is fine. This is fine.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.